Anna had always struggled to make ends meet. Every day was a challenge, juggling 2 jobs just to keep her small apartment. Yet, despite her own hardships, she never hesitated to lend a hand when someone was in need. One rainy afternoon, while rushing to her second job, she saw a man sitting by the curb, stuck in a wheelchair. He was struggling to move, his face showing frustration. Without thinking twice, Anna pulled over. She offered him a ride, knowing she was already running late. Little did she know that simple act of kindness would change her life forever. The next day, a lawyer knocked on her door with an unexpected offer. An offer that would alter the course of her future in ways she couldn't have imagined. Hi everyone, welcome to Life in Pieces Tales. Today, I'm excited to share a new story with you. Anna worked 2 jobs to pay for her rent. It was never enough, but she kept pushing forward. Her first job was at a local diner. The second was at a grocery store late at night. She barely had time for herself, but she never complained. She had learned long ago that life wasn't fair, and you had to make do with what you had. One evening, as she drove her old car through the rain, she noticed a man on the sidewalk. He was struggling with his wheelchair. His hands were trembling as he tried to move it across the wet street. Anna slowed down, watching him for a moment. She saw the frustration in his face. He was stuck. Without thinking, she rolled down her window. "Do you need a ride?" she asked, her voice soft but sincere. The man looked up, startled. I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble at all," she said, offering a warm smile. "I'm already heading in that direction. I can give you a lift." He hesitated, but nodded. She opened the door for him, helping him into the passenger seat, his wheelchair folded beside him. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the rain tapping against the windows. Finally, he spoke. "Thank you. I'm Daniel." "I'm Anna," she replied. "Where can I drop you?" "Just up ahead." "At the hospital," Daniel said, his voice faint, as if he didn't want to say too much. Anna drove him to the hospital, making small talk along the way. She didn't know why, but she felt a connection to him. He didn't seem like someone who would ask for help, yet here he was, accepting the ride. Something about him made her want to do more. When they reached the hospital, she helped him out of the car. "Take care, Daniel," she said, giving him a brief smile. "Thank you," he said quietly, before wheeling himself towards the entrance. Anna drove away, feeling a strange sense of warmth. She hadn't done anything special, just helped someone who needed it. But somehow, it felt important. The next morning, Anna woke up tired but grateful for the quiet moments before she had to rush off again. Her apartment was small, but it was hers. She didn't have much, but she made sure everything she owned had a place. As she made coffee in her tiny kitchen, her mind wandered back to Daniel. He seemed like someone who didn't ask for help, yet there she was, giving him a ride just the night before. It wasn't a big thing, just a simple act of kindness. Yet she couldn't stop thinking about it. Was he okay? Was the hospital visit important? She pushed the thought away. It wasn't her business. She had her own problems to deal with. Anna worked at the diner in the morning, serving coffee and eggs to regular customers who barely noticed her. As always, she did her best to make everyone feel welcome, though sometimes it felt like the world was moving on without her. She often wondered if anyone would notice if she wasn't there anymore. The idea seemed far-fetched, but it lingered. By the time she arrived home that evening, exhausted and ready to crash, the unexpected happened. A knock on her door. It was a sharp, quick knock, not the kind you expect from a friend or neighbor. When she opened it, a man in a suit stood there, holding a briefcase. His face was serious but polite. "Are you Anna?" he asked, his voice firm. "Yes," Anna replied, feeling a little confused. "Can I help you?" "My name is Richard Blake." "I'm a lawyer," he said, stepping slightly into her small hallway. "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Daniel Carter." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had barely thought of Daniel since yesterday, but now his name was being said in her apartment, and she had no idea why. "Mr. Carter," she echoed, trying to make sense of it. "Yes," Richard continued, setting his briefcase down on the small table by her door. "He asked me to come and speak with you." Anna felt her stomach tighten. She had no idea where this was going. She stepped aside, motioning for him to come in. The lawyer sat down on her couch while Anna remained standing, unsure of what to do. "Mr. Carter," Richard began, "has left you something. He wanted to make sure it reached you in person." Anna blinked, confused. What do you mean? I barely know the man." Richard smiled slightly. "He has his reasons. Let me explain." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a small envelope, carefully handing it to Anna. It was addressed to her, but the handwriting was unfamiliar. "Take your time," Richard said. "Mr. Carter has requested that you open this now." Anna's hands trembled slightly as she tore open the envelope. Inside, she found a letter and a check. The letter was short, but it was clear. "Dear Anna, I wanted to thank you for the kindness you showed me yesterday. I know you didn't think much of it, but it meant the world to me. I've been struggling with my disability for years and often feel invisible. But your simple gesture reminded me that there are still good people in the world. As a small token of my appreciation, I'm leaving you something. Please use it for whatever you need." With gratitude, Daniel Carter Anna's hands shook as she looked down at the check. It was a large amount of money, far more than she could have imagined. For a moment, her mind went blank. This couldn't be real. Why would he do this? Anna asked, her voice almost a whisper. Richard nodded. "It's not just about the money. Mr. Carter has no family, no one else to leave this to. But after your act of kindness, he felt you were the one who deserved it." Anna was still in shock. She had helped a man in need because it was the right thing to do, not expecting anything in return. Now, here she was, holding a check that could change everything. I don't know what to say," Anna murmured. Richard stood up. "You don't need to say anything. Just know that this is Mr. Carter's way of thanking you. It's not just about the money, but the recognition of your kindness." As Richard left, Anna stood there, still holding the check. Her mind raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. She didn't deserve this. She was just an ordinary woman trying to survive. But in that moment, something shifted inside her. Maybe kindness did matter. Maybe it could change the course of someone's life. Anna sat at the small kitchen table, the check still in front of her. It felt surreal. The money wasn't the issue, though it was more than she'd ever seen at one time. It was the gesture. A man she barely knew had trusted her with something so significant, based solely on one kind act. The weight of it felt almost suffocating. She stared at the letter again. It was clear Daniel didn't expect anything in return. But how could she accept this? She hadn't done anything special. She had simply given him a ride when he needed help. It wasn't a big deal, not in her eyes, but apparently it had been for him. Anna ran her fingers along the edge of the check. She thought about her bills, the overdue rent notice, the stress of juggling 2 jobs just to survive. This money could solve so many problems for her. It could pay her rent, help her fix her car, maybe even give her some breathing room. But it didn't feel right. It felt like too much. She tried to put the check down, but it felt impossible. Was she really the kind of person who could accept such a large gift from a stranger? A part of her wanted to tear it up, send it back, or at least find a way to say no. But there was no way to do that without feeling ungrateful. After hours of going back and forth in her head, Anna decided to call the lawyer, Richard Blake. Her fingers hovered over the phone. What was she supposed to say? I don't deserve this? Or maybe, thank you, but no thanks. Finally, she dialed the number. Richard answered on the first ring. Mr. Blake, this is Anna. From yesterday, she said, her voice shaky. I don't know how to say this, but I'm not sure I can accept this gift. Richard was silent for a moment before speaking. Anna, I understand how you might feel. It's a lot to take in. But Mr. Carter chose you for a reason. He saw something in you, and this isn't just about the money. It's a recognition of your character, your kindness. I just gave him a ride, Anna said softly. It wasn't a big deal. Richard's voice softened. To you, it may not seem like much, but for him, it was everything. People like Daniel, they don't have much. The small things, the things that most of us take for granted, they mean the world. Anna fell silent. She didn't know what else to say. If you still feel unsure, Richard continued, you don't have to make a decision right now. But Mr. Carter is adamant. This is his way of thanking you. And it's something he wants to do, not because he has to, but because he feels you've changed his life in a way you can't even understand. Anna's chest tightened. It wasn't about the money. It was about the unexpected connection. I'll think about it, she finally said. But I don't know if I'm the right person to accept it. Richard paused, then added, sometimes it's not about being the right person. It's just about being in the right place at the right time. After the call ended, Anna sat quietly in the dim light of her apartment. She wasn't sure what to do. She had always prided herself on being independent, on not needing anyone. But now, this unexpected act of generosity made her feel vulnerable. Later that night, as she lay in bed, she thought about Daniel again. She wondered what he was like, what his life had been like. Why had he been alone? Why had he chosen to trust her, a complete stranger? The next day, Anna decided to go back to the hospital where she had dropped him off. She couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to understand more. Maybe she could learn something about him, something that would help her make sense of this situation. When she arrived at the hospital, she asked the receptionist about Daniel. She didn't know if she should even be asking, but something inside her urged her to. He's been coming here for years, the receptionist said, but he doesn't have any family, just a few close friends. A quiet man, but kind, always kind. Anna's heart sank. She realized she knew so little about him, yet she felt like his kindness had changed her life in a way she couldn't explain. I gave him a ride the other day, Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't realize he didn't have anyone. I didn't know. The receptionist smiled gently. Sometimes, people don't want to burden others with their problems. Daniel's the type who takes care of himself, but he never hesitates to help someone else. Anna walked out of the hospital feeling conflicted. She had learned nothing new about Daniel's past, but she felt a deeper understanding. His kindness had been genuine, and now she was holding something that could change her own life. But what did she do with it? Was she the kind of person who could accept this kind of gift? Or was it just too much? The days passed, but the decision Anna had to make never seemed to get any easier. She couldn't shake the image of Daniel, sitting in his wheelchair, smiling at her in gratitude. That small act of kindness had led to so much more than she had expected. The check still sat on her kitchen table, unopened. Her mind kept racing. On one hand, the money could change everything for her. It could pay off her rent, fix her car, maybe even let her take a break from her exhausting routine. On the other hand, it felt wrong to accept something so generous from someone she barely knew. And yet, Daniel had trusted her with it. He had chosen her. She spent the next few days in a daze. At work, her mind wandered as she served customers at the diner. She tried to push the thoughts away, focusing on her tasks, but it was impossible. Every moment she wasn't working, she was thinking about the letter, the check, and Daniel. Finally, after a few days of restless thinking, Anna made a decision. She had to do something. She called Richard Blake again. "Mr. Blake," she began, her voice steady but full of uncertainty. "I've been thinking about the gift, about the check, and I've decided I want to meet with Daniel. I need to understand more before I can accept this." Richard was silent for a moment, and Anna could almost hear him considering her words. "I understand," he said at last. "I'll arrange for you to meet him. But I should warn you, Daniel's health isn't great. He's not the same man he was before. His life hasn't been easy, and his condition has worsened over time. But he will be happy to see you." Anna's heart sank. She hadn't known it would be this difficult. She had only helped him out of a small moment of kindness, but it seemed that his life had been a constant struggle. "I'll meet him," Anna said softly, her voice full of resolve. "Thank you." The meeting was set for the following week. Anna spent the days leading up to it in a nervous haze, wondering what she would find when she met Daniel again. She had no idea what to expect, but she knew this was the moment that would help her decide what to do with the gift he had given her. When the day arrived, she drove to the same hospital where she had dropped him off days ago. She wasn't sure why, but her hands were trembling as she parked the car. She had no expectations, no grand hopes. She simply needed answers. Inside the hospital, she asked the receptionist for directions to Daniel's room. The receptionist smiled kindly and pointed her down the hall. As Anna walked, the weight of the situation began to settle over her. She had been expecting this for days, but now that it was here, it felt real. When she reached his room, she knocked softly on the door. There was a pause before a faint voice called out, "Come in." Anna opened the door slowly. Daniel was sitting in a hospital bed, his face pale but kind. He looked up when she entered, his expression softening as he saw her. "Anna," he said, his voice quieter than she remembered. "Thank you for coming." She smiled nervously, stepping closer to the bed. I wasn't sure if I should accept the gift. I needed to understand why you would do something like that." Daniel looked at her, his eyes reflecting something deeper than just gratitude. "You helped me when I needed it." Most people wouldn't have stopped. They would have passed by without a second thought. But you took the time, and that meant more to me than you'll ever know. Anna sat down in the chair next to him. "But why me? Why not someone else? I'm just trying to get by. I don't have much. I don't even know what to do with this kind of gift." Daniel's eyes softened, and he took a slow breath. "I know what it feels like to be invisible. I've been living with this disability for years now. I can't work anymore, can't do most of the things I used to. People don't see me. They see my wheelchair, my condition. They don't see me." Anna felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't realized how much he had been through. She had thought she was just helping a stranger, but now she understood how much it had meant to him. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I never expected anything in return." "You don't need to say anything," Daniel replied gently. "I didn't want you to feel burdened by this. But when you showed me kindness, it reminded me of who I was before all of this. It gave me hope, and I wanted to give something back, something that could help you." The room was silent for a moment. Anna could feel the weight of his words, and something inside her shifted. She had come here expecting answers, but she had found something far more meaningful. "I don't know if I deserve this," Anna said, her voice trembling. Daniel's gaze met hers, steady and calm. "It's not about deserving it. It's about seeing the good in people, even when things aren't easy. You saw me. You didn't look away. That's more than most people ever do." Anna sat quietly, taking in his words. She had seen Daniel as just another person in need, but now she saw him as someone who had faced unimaginable challenges. And yet, despite everything, he had chosen to show kindness, just as she had done for him. "I'll accept it," Anna finally said. "But I won't forget what you've done for me. I'll use this wisely, I promise." Daniel smiled, his eyes closing briefly as if a weight had been lifted. "That's all I could ask for." Weeks went by after Anna's visit to Daniel in the hospital. The conversation they'd had lingered in her mind, especially his words about seeing the good in people, even when life is difficult. She had left that meeting with a sense of clarity she hadn't expected. It wasn't just the money that had changed her life. It was the understanding that kindness could transcend even the toughest circumstances. Anna had decided to accept the check, but more than that, she had decided to honor Daniel's trust in her. She paid her rent, fixed her car, and took a small portion of the money to visit the local community center. There, she volunteered her time, helping those in need, just as she had once helped Daniel. It felt good to give back, to share even a fraction of the kindness that had been shown to her. The diner where Anna worked had become a little more than just a job. It had become a place where she could connect with people, listen to their stories, and remind them that kindness still existed. And as for Daniel, he continued to write her small letters, each one filled with gratitude. They shared an unexpected bond now, a connection that, in its own quiet way, had brought light into both their lives. One day, months later, Anna received another call from Richard Blake. Her heart skipped as she picked up the phone. "Anna," Richard said, "I have something I need to discuss with you. Mr. Carter. Well, he's made another decision, and he wanted me to speak with you." Anna's stomach tightened. She had been doing her best to move forward, to live her life, but a part of her had always wondered if this wasn't the end of the story. "Mr. Carter has decided to leave you something more," Richard continued. "A piece of property he's had for years. It's a small house, not far from where you live." Anna's breath caught in her throat. "A house? But why?" Richard was quiet for a moment. "It's part of Daniel's wishes. He wants you to have it. He says you gave him hope when he needed it most, and now he wants to help you live a life that's more than just getting by." Anna sat down at the table, feeling her pulse quicken. She had never expected this. She had simply wanted to honor Daniel's kindness, to help others the way he had helped her. But now, a part of her wondered if she had underestimated how deeply their connection had become. "I don't know what to say," Anna whispered. "This is too much." "I know," Richard said gently, "but Daniel doesn't see it that way. He wants you to have something more, something that will give you the opportunity to truly build your future. He believes in you." For a long moment, Anna didn't speak. She thought of everything she had gone through. The sleepless nights, the endless worry about money, the days when she had wondered if she would ever escape the weight of her struggles. But now, Daniel's gift, his faith in her, was a chance to turn everything around. "I'll accept it," Anna said finally, her voice full of quiet resolve. "I'll make sure it's worth it." And she did. The small house Daniel had left her was far more than just a piece of property. It was a symbol of change. Over the next few months, Anna transformed it into a warm, welcoming home. She planted flowers in the garden, painted the walls, and filled the rooms with memories she was just beginning to create. She continued to volunteer at the community center, her life slowly growing into something she hadn't imagined possible. The money Daniel had given her had helped her, yes, but the deeper gift was his belief in her. One evening, as she sat on the front porch of her new home, Anna thought back to that day in the hospital room. She had walked in unsure, skeptical, and uncertain of what to do with the unexpected kindness Daniel had shown her. Now, sitting in her own space, she realized that his act of giving had not only changed her life, but had given her a sense of purpose she had never known before. She looked up at the stars above, a small smile crossing her face. It wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about the ripple effect of kindness, how one simple, selfless act could turn into something that changed the course of someone's life. And she knew, without a doubt, that she would continue to pass it forward. Loved this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Life in Pieces Tales for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments.